Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. President Trump speaks at the Economic Club of New York, reminding Americans of economic and job gains across the board since his election win. He also criticized the Federal Reserve for policies that undermined those gains. Republicans released their strategy to fight the impeachment of President Trump. Most of it rests on showing the American public that the president didn't commit an impeachable offense. The U.S. Supreme Court hears arguments over the legality of an Obama-era protection program for illegal immigrants who entered the country as children. Trump wants to rescind the program. More on how the justices view the case. A former ABC producer was fired over a leaked hot mic video, but she denies she was the one who leaked it. She says her next employer fired her after the video came out without hearing her side. Over 240 million Americans are under winter warnings, watches, and advisories. The 70% of the country is bracing for record lows. 1,200 flights were cancelled and one plane slid off the runway. President Trump highlighted the success of the economy while speaking at the Economic Club of New York today, attributing the boom in growth and jobs to his policies.
Trump told guests at the New York Hilton that his administration has delivered on promises and far exceeded expectations.
Well, thank you very much, Bob.
Likewise, he pointed to the economy's 10th year of uninterrupted expansion and near record low unemployment, which he attributes to his tax, trade, and deregulation policies.
We have ended the war on American workers. We have stopped the assault on American industry. And we have launched an economic boom, the likes of which we have never seen before.
Trump reiterated his disapproval of the Federal Reserve's actions since he won the election. He criticized the Fed's quantitative tightening and 8 rate increases, which he called far too fast an increase and far too slow a decrease.
Because remember, we are actively competing with nations who openly cut interest rates so that now many are actually getting paid when they pay off their loan, known as negative interest. Who ever heard of such a thing? The Federal Reserve doesn't.
He added that the Fed doesn't let us play at that game.
It puts us at a competitive disadvantage to other countries.
Wall Street also watched the president's remarks closely, looking for signs that might hint at the future of the economy. One such sign is the first step of a broader U.S.-China trade deal, which Trump said could happen soon.
Republicans have released their strategy to fight the impeachment of President Trump. Most of it rests on convincing the American public that there is no evidence Trump committed high crimes and misdemeanors. NTD's Holly Kellum has the details.
The strategy took the form of a memo circulated to the Republicans on the 3 committees investigating the president. The investigation centers on a July 25th call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On the call, Trump asked Zelensky to investigate potential corruption by former Vice President Joe Biden. Shortly before the call, the White House withheld almost $400 million in military aid to Ukraine. House Democrats are looking for evidence Trump used the aid as leverage to get an investigation into a political rival. Trump has denied that was his motive. He said he was worried about corruption in Ukraine and also wanted to pressure the EU to pay more for Ukraine's defense. In making their case, Republicans will point out that the Ukrainians were not told the aid was being withheld until after it was sent. They also point to the fact that the aid was released without any investigation into Biden. Zelensky has said that he didn't feel pressured to comply with Trump's request.
I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed it.
President Trump has also promised to release the transcript of another phone call he had with Zelensky. He says it will show he did nothing wrong.
They asked for it, and I gladly give it.
Wednesday is the start of the open part of the impeachment hearings. 2 State Department officials are set to testify. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
And today, DACA is being discussed in the Supreme Court. Over 600,000 illegal immigrants are shielded under the Obama-era program, a program President Trump tried to shut down in 2017, but which was defended by lower courts. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the case.
This is not amnesty. This is not immunity.
President Barack Obama's executive order from 2012 continues to shield hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants from deportation and give them work permits. He said,
"It is the right thing to do."
But the current administration has made undoing DACA a primary focus, and today the case made it to the Supreme Court. The conservative judges, 5 out of 9, appear to sympathize with President Trump's action to rescind the program. The plaintiffs, however, exited proudly. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor pressed the administration for their justification in trying to rescind the program and whether they've considered the potential harm this action would cause. On behalf of the administration, Solicitor General Noel Francisco argued that rescinding DACA, which they consider an unlawful policy, was within the president's abilities. Because of this, the conservative justices question whether courts even have the power to review President Trump's efforts to stop DACA. Today, the president said if Supreme Court remedies would overturn, a deal will be made with Dems for them to stay. The High Court's decision is expected by June. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
A woman accused of leaking a hot mic video from ABC denies the charge. Former ABC News producer Ashley Bianco left ABC to work at CBS. She says she was on the job for 4 days before CBS fired her over the leaked video.
Ashley Bianco told former Fox News and Today Show host Megyn Kelly that she didn't know who leaked the video.
Did you leak the tape?
I did not.
Not to anyone?
No,
At any time?
No.
She said ABC told CBS, which fired her without giving her an opportunity to defend herself. This was the video that was leaked to media watchdog Project Veritas. In it, ABC News anchor Amy Robach was caught on a hot mic saying this about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story.
She claimed she interviewed one of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers in 2015, but never got it on air. The well-connected multimillionaire was convicted in 2008 of procuring an underage girl for prostitution. Earlier this year, he was charged with trafficking, including underage girls. However, the charges were dropped when he was found dead in his New York prison cell in August.
I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it.
She went on to say that ABC got pressure from the British royalty to quash the story since it involved Prince Andrew. She said ABC was worried they wouldn't be able to interview Prince William and Kate Middleton, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Robach released a statement after the video came out. She said she was caught in a moment of frustration, but that they could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to run the story. ABC also said in a statement the interview didn't meet its standards to air. Robach still works for ABC News. Bianco says she wants her job back, but isn't optimistic. As for her claim, the founder of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, also said Bianco wasn't the leaker. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
Michael Bloomberg has filed the paperwork needed to get on the ballot in Arkansas's March 3rd presidential primary.
The billionaire former New York City mayor hasn't formally announced a bid for the Democratic presidential nomination, but his trip to Arkansas on Tuesday is the latest indication that he is leaning toward a run.
We're still exploring what we're going to do, and we had to register today or you couldn't be on the ballot.
Bloomberg sent staffers to Alabama last week to file for the primary there. He's moving toward a presidential bid, as he warns that the current field of Democratic presidential candidates isn't equipped to contend with President Trump next year. But Bloomberg is still non-committal about what he's going to do.
What's your time frame for making a decision on whether to run?
Well, I swore to not answer that question.
Okay.
Bloomberg plans to skip the traditional early voting states and focus more on Super Tuesday states, including Arkansas and Alabama.
French President Emmanuel Macron announced he will meet with President Trump ahead of the next NATO summit. Our French correspondent David Vives has the details.
French President Emmanuel Macron said on Monday that he and President Trump would meet before the December NATO summit in London. Macron said in a tweet he had held an excellent telephone discussion with Trump on Monday night. He said they talked about Syria, Iran, and NATO. He said European members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization should reassess NATO after President Trump pulled U.S. troops out of northeast Syria without warning.
In a recent interview with The Economist, Macron said the lack of commitment from the U.S. was leading to NATO's brain death.
Remarks that were rejected by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo during his visit to Germany on November 7th.
I think NATO remains an important, critical, perhaps historically one of the most critical strategic partnerships in all of recorded history.
According to think tank President Jean-Pierre Molny, Macron's remark was addressed to European allies rather than the United States administration. It is simply a message to the European partners. It is in our interest to take our security into account because we can't hope that our American ally will back us on everything. According to Molny, as there isn't such a thing as a NATO army, it all depends eventually on how much European countries will strengthen their military forces. France calls on European countries to strengthen their military capacity. In fact, this is really supporting NATO, and at the same time doing what the U.S. president expects Europe to do. In an answer to Macron's remark, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said NATO is and remains a cornerstone of Europe's security and must be preserved.
Syrian state-run news said today that an attack in Damascus overnight killed the son of Islamic Jihad leader Akram al-Ajuri. The news agency added that another person had been killed and 10 others injured, including al-Ajuri's daughter. These attacks happened the same morning Israeli forces killed senior Islamic Jihad leader Abu al-Atta and his wife, along with 5 others in Gaza. Israel accused al-Atta of planning a terror attack on Israeli citizens. And winter weather whiplash is slamming a large part of the country. Over 240 million people are under winter warnings, watches and advisories as people scramble to pull out their coldest weather gear much earlier than expected this year. We take a look at the big chill across the country.
More than 70% of the country bracing for a record-breaking polar plunge.
I'm not ready for it.
Many are sharing bitter feelings about the expected bitter cold temperatures following an early winter storm.
Came a little too soon. I don't have my scraper. I don't know where my boots are.
Snow and ice blanketed part of the plains, Midwest and Northeast overnight. Over 240 million people are under winter warnings, watches, and advisories. The storm sparking more than 1,200 cancellations at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, where a plane slid off an icy runway.
We thought we were going to flip, so it was definitely scary.
But the biggest issue for many, an Arctic plunge. Several cities are opening shelters and warming centers ahead of the frigid temperatures.
We're going to different areas of the city and we're looking for people that maybe for whatever reason don't know about us or some of our partners where they can go in. For whatever reason, they may think they just want to tough it out in the weather.
Many schools in the Northeast are closed for the day. Even states in the deep South, as far as Texas and the Florida Panhandle, will have dramatic temperature drops within the span of hours, from the mid-50s to near freezing. In some cases, temperatures are 30 to 40 degrees below normal for this time of year.
Up next, Hong Kong's streets were aflame today after some of the city's worst violence in decades. Clashes flared around 2 universities and in the central business district. A number of students were injured. More on that after the break.
This is extremely gutsy. The Chinese Communist Party is not known for taking criticism very well.
The police have blocked off the streets and been firing tear gas and beanbag rounds at the protesters, and they've made several arrests.
警方呢是一直进行了一些推进，并且呢是多次舉起黑旗和橙旗呢，去發射了很多的催淚彈。
即係佢哋放催淚彈嗰時，嘭咁撞到個肚㗎。咁咧就我而家翻轉頭咧見到個咁嘅嘢，因為嗰時兵荒馬亂啦，我就。
That's the media liaison. They're telling us that we need to get out of here. They're telling the press to leave.
Boy, this tear gas is getting pretty strong.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Hong Kong's streets were aflame today after some of the city's worst violence in decades. Clashes flared around two universities in the central business district.
After some of the worst violence in decades, rare weekday clashes brought Hong Kong's central business district to a standstill on Tuesday. Police fired tear gas to break up pro-democracy protests and warned the city was on the brink of total breakdown. This was a day after they shot a protester at close range. And for the second day running, a flash mob descended during the lunch hour. Office workers watched from the walkways. Others joined the crowd. One finance worker was spotted on the front line in a pencil skirt and court shoes, saying she's there to protect the kids. Women and men in suits shouted, "See you tomorrow," as the protests cleared out, with no sign, there at least, of the police. But violence flared around the city and universities, where police fired tear gas and protesters threw petrol bombs and bricks at them.
They are trying to suppress our voice, and as a result, today we are here. We are calling for the general strike of all Hong Kong people.
Because this is not a fight of the president. This is a fight for the whole generation.
After months of routine protests in Hong Kong, this week seems to be a turning point. Businesses in Asia's financial center shut early as the violence took hold. Leader Carrie Lam has toughened her language against the protesters. This week, she called them selfish and the enemy of the people. Meanwhile, Lam's popularity rating fell to just 19.5 out of 100 points, a record low across all previous chief executives, according to the latest survey released on Tuesday. This week's violence also caught the attention of foreign governments. The U.S. said it is watching with grave concern and urged the Hong Kong government to build on its dialogue with the public.
According to Radio Television Hong Kong, a number of students were injured, including one who was suspected of being knocked unconscious after a head injury. And 51 children and 3 teachers were injured in an attack at a kindergarten in southwest China. A man sprayed the children and teachers with a corrosive chemical called caustic soda. The attack happened in Yunnan province. A 23-year-old suspect climbed into the school yesterday afternoon. He sprayed those inside with sodium hydroxide, also known as caustic soda. There were no life-threatening injuries, but 2 victims suffered serious burns. 4 had less serious burns, and 48 sustained minor injuries. The suspect was detained after the attack. Police say they believe he was acting alone. And up next, a truffle weighing more than 2 pounds sold in Italy for $132,000. The white truffle was sold at live auction to an unknown bidder from Hong Kong. That and more when we return.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The the Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Every once in a while, something comes along, so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Sheng Yun, an all-new production every year.
A truffle weighing more than 2 pounds has sold in Italy for $132,000. The white truffle was sold at live auction to an unknown bidder from Hong Kong.
Auctioneers and truffle hunters are celebrating the sale of the biggest white truffle this year. It was found in northern Italy's Piedmont region near Alba, the white truffle capital of the world. The truffle weighs a whopping 105 grams and is worth a small fortune. The prized truffle costs around $410 per 3.5 ounces in Italy. $462,000 worth of truffles are being auctioned, with weights starting around 9.5 ounces. But this giant, sold by Robaldo Tartufi, is fetching $132,000. The sale was via live auction with bidders from all over the world. It was sold to a buyer from Hong Kong. There are around 200,000 truffle hunters licensed in Italy to search for truffles over about 4 months between September and January. A damp, foggy November morning is perfect for hunting for prized white truffles. Carlo Olivero has been truffle hunting for over 40 years and still gets emotional when his 3-year-old dog Steele stops running around to give him the sign. I call it the magic moment because it means that there is something under there that we were looking for. We still don't know the dimensions, how big it will be, but the heartbeat speeds up because in that moment we know there is something. In 2014, Olivero and his dog stumbled upon a truffle weighing 18 ounces, one of his biggest finds to date.
A 13-pound cat is helping put travellers at ease at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. The 11-year-old tabby calico mix named Stitches is a new therapy cat at the airport. Stitches joins 96 therapy dogs at the same airport that go around helping to soothe the nerves of frazzled travellers. There are at least 70 US airports with therapy animal programs. The one at Minneapolis-St. Paul is the 3rd largest one. And a Burmese sapphire and Colombian emeralds will be among the jewels that will sparkle in Sotheby's fall auction in Geneva tomorrow.
The bracelet made by Cartier with a 46-carat Bernese sapphire flanked by 2 diamonds is estimated to fetch between $2 and $3 million.
The best you can really expect within Burmese stones. And it is flanked by 2 8 and 9 carat diamond of D color. So Cartier has not spared any effort in creating this fantastic jewel at the time.
The bracelet is the centerpiece of a collection of jewels from the Art Deco period, often recognized as the golden era of jewelry creation in the 20th century. Another star lot in the auction will be an emerald and diamond necklace, also by Cartier, estimated to fetch between $3.5 to $4.5 million. The 3 in the center weigh 14.56, 14.65, and 28.76 carats respectively, while the 2 detachable and drop-shaped emeralds weigh 50.65 and 51.32 carats.
And to put together a group of emeralds like this is really very difficult indeed. And coupled with this very simple design of marquise diamonds and a chain, I think it's very, very effective. It looks wonderful when it's worn.
A fancy 3-carat vivid blue diamond and a 6-carat intense purple-pink diamond will also go under the hammer. The auction will take place on November 13th in Geneva.
Up next, in a surprise box office win, Roland Emmerich's World War II epic Midway took down the competition in North America to land in first place with $17.5 million on opening weekend. More on that after the break.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
The lasting beauty of traditional oil painting, realistic style, brilliant, moving, expressive. 2019 NTD Television International Competition for Figure Painting in Oil, guided by truthfulness, kindness, and beauty. We invite you to join us on our journey back to traditional art. Gold Prize award of $10,000. For more detail, please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
In a surprise box office win, Roland Emmerich's World War II epic Midway took down the competition in North America to land in first place with $17.5 million.
The war film focuses on real-life events from the Battle of Midway in World War II. It was a clash by air and sea which pivoted the Allied forces towards victory. The battle took place in June 1942, 6 months after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor and 1 month before the Battle of the Coral Sea. The film focuses on real-life U.S. Navy bomber pilot Richard Dick Best, played by British actor Ed Skrein. In another surprise, older males represented 60% of the audience for Midway, a demographic that doesn't usually turn out in large numbers on opening weekends. While $17.5 million isn't much on its own, Midway still managed to unseat Stephen King adaptation Dr. Sleep, which was projected to top #1, as well as the family-friendly comedy Playing with Fire. And in fourth place was holiday rom-com Last Christmas.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.